What do you do if voters don't give you the result that you want in an election? Well, for Donald Trump, the answer is pretty simple. You call it cheating, you redraw maps, you purge members of your own party, and if all else fails, declare a national emergency so you can take control of elections yourself. Right now, multiple reports are saying Trump allies are working on that exact strategy. Let's break it down. To continue to get accurate breakdowns of the most pressing news of the day, subscribe to Courier below. My name is Mason. I'm a progressive live streamer known as One Hand Politics, and I've partnered with Courier to bring you the most pressing news of the day. Over the past week, three separate Trump stories have made headlines. The first is he's reportedly considering declaring a national emergency to take control of elections. Two, his allies are circulating a draft order to put a federal control over voting. And three, he's launching a purge of Republicans who won't redraw their districts in his favor. He is adding primary contests to certain districts. He's trying to remain fully in control of the Republican Party. And at the same time, Trump is telling the country something extraordinary, that the Democrats can't win legitimately. In his State of the Union address, Trump said that the only way Democrats ever win elections is through cheating. Let's start with the most alarming development. According to Mediate, Trump has been mulling a plan to declare a national emergency that could pave the way for federal intervention in elections. Mediaite reports that Trump and his allies are exploring emergency powers that could allow the federal government to step into election administration, a role traditionally held by the states. Trump told Dan Bongino, the conservative commentator and former deputy director of the FBI, that Republicans should say, "We want to take over. We should take over voting in at least 15 places earlier this month." And according to Democracy Docket, a draft emergency order is already circulating. Voting rights experts, democracy advocates, and at least one state election chief said Trump doesn't have the authority to claim such powers, and any attempt would be blatantly unconstitutional. The draft order, which is said to be based on a conspiracy theory that China interfered with the 2020 election, would allow Trump to unilaterally ban mail in ballots and voting machines on the basis that they are susceptible to foreign interference. Trump is then quoted saying, "I've searched the depths of legal arguments not yet articulated or vetted on the subject and will be presenting an irrefutable one in the very near future," Trump wrote. He later posted that would be presenting them shortly in the order or the form of executive order. What a gift such a clearly unconstitutional executive order would be. David Becker, the executive director for Center for Election Innovation and Research and former Department of Justice Civil Rights Division attorney, noted on social media. Though divorced from legal and factual reality, it would enable the courts to invalidate the power grab well in advance of the election and confirm the clear limits to federal interference in elections. In a statement, Colorado's Secretary of State Jenna Griswold vowed to fight back if Trump were to attempt to seize control of voting with any such executive order. Donald Trump continues to be one of the greatest threats to American elections, Griswold said. Regardless of whether this suggested executive order ultimately materializes, every American, regardless of party or ideology, should be extremely concerned by Trump's continued use of lies and conspiracy to justify attempts to seize the reins of election administration and hold on to power. That is not democracy, it is attempted authoritarianism. Media Matters reveals something even more revealing in their article titled "Election Deniers Have Reportedly Coordinated with the Trump White House on a Draft Executive Order Declaring a National Emergency Over Elections." Media Matters has found that other election deniers have been discussing a draft executive order. A figure known as Juan O. Savin, who is tied to the QAnon conspiracy theory and who previously recruited election denial candidates for positions where they would be in charge of election administration around the country, said that his team wrote up a 17-page document on elections, which it provided to the president last spring, and said that Trump is going to use 80, 85, 90% of it. Another election denier, Mark Cook, also suggested on a podcast that he co authored the proposed executive order Savin said he's involved with, adding that a lot of brains got together and put together to offer our president and the Trump administration, a path to solve the problem. So let's pause. The same people who said the 2020 election was stolen, that said that January 6th is something to celebrate, said it was a patriotic display of our a American spirit, our national identity, to just remove election integrity. Those are the people that are now leading the charge for drafting legislation on national election takeover. At the same time that all of this federal power talk has been happening, Trump is also tightening control inside his own party. According to Mediate, Trump launched a true social endorsement spree targeting Indiana Republicans who opposed a redistricting plan that he supported. Trump wants as much gerrymandering as possible. It's why states like California had to respond in retaliation with their own gerrymandering, overriding their independent commission that decides where elections are drawn up. If we want to stop gerrymandering, I saw so many Republican criticisms of California. We need to do it nationwide. But the reason why you're seeing some blue states engage in gerrymandering is in response to what Trump is demanding from Republicans across the country. Trump pushes Rhino purge with endorsement spree against Republicans who opposed his redistricting plan. The endorsements come after the Indiana Senate voted 31 to 19 against Trump's redistricting plan in December. Trump threatened immediately after there would be a MAGA primary against the Indiana suckers who voted against him. Trump always calls people that slightly disagree with him rhinos, pathetic losers, and he promised to back MAGA primary challenges against these people. These are people who typically vote in favor of all Trump legislation or similar Trump legislation within their own state assembly and state senate. It is wild to see that Trump has this much of a crash out after people have a small sense of integrity that they want to preserve. The president's true social barrage was focused on the Indiana state Senate elections, with Trump calling out several politicians who did not support his redistricting plan ahead of the 2026 midterms. So the message to Republicans is clear. If you do not support every action that the president demands from you, if you step out of line, if you're not obedient, if you won't redraw the maps to secure more seats, you're out. You're done. This is not about ideology or policy disagreements. It is about loyalty to a specific outcome and Donald Trump remaining fully in control of every member of his party. Now let's connect this to what Trump is saying publicly about the opposition party. Here's what he had to say about Democrats in his State of the Union address.
No good. Both Republicans and Democrats overwhelmingly agree on the policy that we just enunciated. And Congress should unite and enact this common sense, country saving legislation right now, and it should be before anything else happens. And the reason they don't want to do it, why would anybody not want voter ID? One reason, because they want to cheat. There's only one reason. They make up all excuses. They say it's racist. They come up with things you almost say, what imagination they have. They want to cheat. They have cheated, and their policy is so bad that the only way they can get elected is to cheat. And we're going to stop it. We have to stop it, Josh.
There's the vice president, the House Speaker, and all congressional Republicans standing, saying that Democrats only win when they cheat. So let's explain the narrative a little more clearly. If Democrats win, it's fraud, it's cheating, it's illegitimate. If Republicans resist him, Donald Trump, they're rhinos. If districts don't favor him, we have to redraw them. If the state controls elections, federalize them now. Federal control needs to happen. And if the laws get in the way, declare a national emergency so you override any checks and balances that's trying to prevent you from doing that. Is that not the pattern that's so easily decipherable, even amongst Republicans? How do you, a limited government Republican, if there's any Republicans watching this video, how do you justify this type of behavior? This is a spit in the face to any semblance of symbolic democracy. Can you call yourself a representative republic? I know you guys don't like the term democracy. How do you call yourself a represented republic where citizens are supposed to engage democratically to elect those representatives? How do you do that if the president just says, no, if I don't win, it is fraud, it is rigged. I must have victory. I've said this before in debates with prominent conservatives like Charlie Kirk and Ben Shapiro. But how can you, if you genuinely are saying that the 2020 election was stolen and multiple elections are illegitimate because Democrats have won, how do you justify any restraint from Trump supporters who believe that lie? If you genuinely believe that when a Democrat wins, it's always fraud, what is stopping somebody from committing acts of violence against those Democrats? Because if the other side's victories are always fraud, always illegitimate, there is no democracy. And any action to stop them, whether that's purges, power grabs, emergency orders, violence, starts to feel justified in the minds of these MAGA voters. That's the logic that we're seeing play out right now. And the question isn't whether or not Donald Trump is going to win a majority of these power grabs that he's fighting for. The question is, what happens when a major political movement stops trying to win voters and starts trying to control elections themselves? Because once that shift happens, elections aren't competitions anymore. They are obstacles for authoritarians.